at the Design Summit here in New York City. I'm very pleased to meet Justin Moudis. G'day, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Very well. Interior design for IPG Mediabrands. Take me back to the beginning of this project. What is it?
Well, it's interesting. This project was actually designed twice, which is not something that you necessarily always want to do. But it was, designed initially as a relocation of a company called Initiative into a new location with some of their sister companies, and it was designed as sort of a progressive workplace, sort of very open and sort of incorporating certain amenities and thinking about things such as the density of space and technology and all those things. But dealing with the leadership, we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, this is when I got involved as far as the workplace strategy team. To really they said, put the vision out there. What is if we were to do the most sort of innovative, radical thing, what would we do? And he said, actually, okay, well, what about the concept of activity-based working? To say, what if we didn't think about spaces as belonging to people, but that it was sort of an amalgamation of experiences in which people would sort of self-curate their day when they came into the office. And they said, great idea, I love it, let's do it. And so that's really where the idea of how this space works was born.
Right. It sounds like a Montessori school for kids, almost.
In a sense, it is, and I think it's the realization of sort of a lot of ideas that have been sort of coming for a long time. When we sort of look at the evolution of the workplace and where you started seeing, back in the 80s, companies, like Arthur Andersen, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's sort of introducing ideas about hoteling, sort of saying that space was underutilized and that it was sitting empty. And we all understand that that's true. And I think, as we saw that evolution progress, this is more about the idea of bringing sort of the mobility from the outside world into the office, and to say that, just like you could work in any sort of different setting in the outside world, why should it be any different when you come to work? And so it's more of it's less of a exercise in space efficiency and more of a focus on really changing how people think about work and space.
Yeah, you're completely transforming the way that they're operating within their workplace.
Yes.
But you said you designed it twice. What happened here?
Well, I think the designing it twice is effectively, it was planned to be a traditional workplace with every person having their own assigned seat day one, and then and looking at it differently, we were able to find in that same footprint, if you were to think differently and you were to say not everybody needs an assigned seat, we could actually create all sorts of different spaces and amenities, and I think sort of take you on a tangent, but one of the things I think, when you start to look at this concept of open plan, right, and people ask the question, is this a fad, is this a trend, are we sort of moving towards where everything's going to be completely open, are we going to go back to having private offices? And this is really a response to say, it's neither of those, it's actually something completely different. And where you hear all the stuff about generational differences and like designing for millennials, and I think this idea is to say that people are people, right? And some people operate differently. Like for me, to concentrate, I need some background noise. I say it quiets the voices in my head, right? And you can, I actually work great in a cafe or a park or a space that has some buzz in it. Other people want to go and close the door, have complete silence. That's not generational, that's personal. And I think the idea of a workplace that offers more variety and choice is appealing to anybody. It's just, it's a little bit scary to take away someone's desk, right?
So this workplace offers all of those different opportunities for people who have different ways of negotiating their own workplace, how they think. So noise, quiet, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a big change for people. They came from a traditional workplace of offices, workstations, conference rooms, and this was really saying that basically when you come to work, that your team has a neighborhood in which you work.
A borough?
Yes, you have a borough, and there are sort of, just like in a city, there are sort of districts or areas that you go to do certain things. So there's quiet zones, like library spaces, where sort of thinking about that idea, like you don't have to be alone to have peace and quiet. You just need to be in a space where everybody's being quiet. So I don't know if this is a thing they have in Australia, but and when you get on an Amtrak train going to taking the Acela, there is a quiet car, and if someone gets on the phone in the quiet car or tries to have a loud conversation, someone is going to shush them, right? So there are actually spaces in this environment where there are no phones allowed, no meetings allowed. They're just where you go to sort of focus. And then there's other places that are more social or more engaging.
So this is an advertising company,
yes.
right? So what is it about the type of organisation that enables this new way of working?
It's interesting. I think initially it was thought of as being for a certain set of companies, right? Sort of the most progressive, sort of innovative. A lot of times it was thought of as working well for consulting houses and companies where people weren't in the office a lot, because when they did come into the office, they needed different things. I think what we're seeing is that it's shifting. We're actually we worked with a very large financial institution to implement a similar philosophy. You see media companies, you see all different types of organizations. So it's become more of a ubiquitous kind of approach, which is, I think, really exciting.
Okay, so are they changing their work practices because their interior has changed, or had they already transformed how they wanted to work prior to getting the fit out?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you have some projects, right, where you say we're sort of evolving the work environment to catch up to how people are already working. This one went a step further to actually say we are going to actively change the environment to purposefully change the way that people behave and interact and work. So one of the things that happened with this project was we said, okay, well, you look around any sort of company, and particularly there's a lot of stuff, right? There's paper, there's things. This environment, effectively, it's 100,000 square foot space, something like that. That's rentable in New York, so it's really that's what's like 60-something thousand usable square feet. And there is one room with 2 filing cabinets in it that really houses the HR files. Other than that, there's not a single filing cabinet on the floors. People have personal lockers where they store things, but part of that was to say, how do we become paperless? And it wasn't sort of that the organization had become paperless and we were going to just get rid of all the empty filing cabinets. We sort of said, we're designing a space with no filing cabinets. How are we going to get to the place where we actually don't have any paper? And that was really, for my team, we worked with them a lot on the change management aspect, so I got to sort of touch and meet and work with all the groups and hear about those work patterns and all the things that had to change in order to adopt this kind of environment.
Okay. Could you work there yourself? Could your company transplant it into this kind of office space, this type of workplace of the future, which is really of the now because it's happening, but could you do it?
I absolutely could, yes, and I would love to. I mean, I think there's a beer garden in the office, right? So who wouldn't want to? Who wouldn't want to work there?
They grow beer?
Well, no, it's like a beer. That was a good one. I absolutely could work there. I think certain functions, but it's interesting to think about an architecture practice and how, in a lot of cases, the sort of this, the strategies and things that we're implementing. You look at our own business model, where there's huge amounts of big rolled drawings that people are sort of looking at that are coming in from consultants. There's samples and all these materials and things, and you sort of think about the culture of stuff and that idea of how you I think it absolutely could evolve to that, where you begin to think of those things as more shared materials versus something that's yours, that sits at your desk. I think we're not there yet, but could be there soon. It could be,
It's picking up similar ideas from the shared economy, from sharing our objects, our things, our tools, even, which never really picked up, of course, in the community. But they had the big passion or the idea that it would work. But trying to get that into our places of work, trying to make that happen.
I think in that sort of the comparison to the shared economy, I think it's part of why this is picking up as a concept, because people are becoming more comfortable and accustomed to that idea of that you don't have to own something in order to get the utility of it, right? It's like, so Uber or Zipcar or whatnot, that you need to get from point A to point B. You don't necessarily need to do it in your own vehicle. Just like work, you need to get something done, and that could really change over time, and that could change from day to day, week to week. as far as the work that you're doing, or even who you need to sit next to today to get what you need to get done, it could change, right? And so if you're sort of in a fixed environment, or even just to say that you might, what if you got sort of assigned a seat next to the most annoying, loudest person in the office, and you were sort of an introvert? This sort of liberates you to say, I'm going to go sit somewhere else, because, but imagine if it sort of puts people in control of their own situation, which is...
Where do you put those little pictures of Susie and Bob,
I think...
And your pot plant? Where does that happen?
Exactly. Well, I think one of the things that we did is, when we sort of thought about that idea of personalization or belonging. And so when we, with this project, it was designed, you don't walk into this huge space and just say, I'm going to sit anywhere. You could technically sit anywhere, but teams are sort of centered around these home bases or these neighborhoods, right? So for Initiative, they're sort of brand philosophy. There's four key words. It's fast, brave, decisive, and simple, which I think are just really explain the business. And so in the building, just so happens, there are 4 quadrants, so they are named fast, brave, decisive, and simple. They each have their sort of own unique characteristics, but have sort of similar elements to them that offer anything from sort of very focused spaces to very collaborative spaces. And those really serve as the home base. And then there's other areas where we even have one space it's the sort of the I'm trying to remember the term for it, but it's a gallery space where there's sort of string art all over the wall, and people can just go and sort of pin up their, I always say it's like a picture of your pug dressed as a pumpkin for Halloween, or your new baby, or a picture of your vacation. You actually see people sort of share all that kind of stuff on this one communal wall, so it actually makes it where you're personalizing it, but you're sharing that probably even more than you would at your own desk, right?
Forget Facebook, you can do it on the string wall.
Exactly. Well, and you have your screensaver if you want to look at pictures, right?
Does it actually, I mean, let's quick before we wrap up, does it make a change in terms of productivity for this company? How does it change not only the culture within the business, but within how they extend themselves elsewhere?
Yeah, well, I think certain things, like we as far as how you look at productivity, which is always subjective. It's self-reported. We actually did a post-occupancy survey, and we found that people felt they were more productive in the environment. We've heard, anecdotally, that the companies have seen a drop in turnover, which is great. And then there are other things where when you think about productivity, and not to give you a big long thing, but I think for a long time, particularly with workplace design, we designed for convenience, right? We said, how do you make things more convenient? How do you keep people from, sort of leaving their desk? How do you sort of put printing and supplies and make sure that they can get a cup of coffee easily and they're not sort of standing by the water cooler for too long? And that was sort of the idea of productivity. And I think, you look at this project, one of the ideas was that we said, okay, very large space, and there's one place to get coffee. And we said, okay, well, instead of providing sort of crappy coffee everywhere, spending money sort of servicing all these little pantries and fridges, let's do it one time, one place. Let's invest in it. Let's hire a barista. Let's serve really great coffee. The CEO of the organization, Peter Mears, actually, when we talked about this idea, he said he wanted there to be a queue. When you walked in, and to the middle of the office, the first thing you see when you walk through the front door is a coffee bar. And the idea of the queue was that people would have to talk to each other. You would be forced to sort of leave your neighborhood, go somewhere if you wanted. You can't make people walk for everything, but for a cup of coffee, they will get out of their chair and they will go and walk. And that idea of that actually sounds like it's counterproductive. It's not adding productivity, but what we're hearing is that it's making them more productive because they know people. Yeah,
sounds good. Great. So I have a soy flat white. Do you know what that is?
A soy flat
white. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, it's a coffee. Yeah.
What makes it flat?
I don't know. We'll talk about it later. It's like a cappuccino without the froth and no chocolate.
Nice.
It's really good.
Ooh, yum.
Yeah, let's go line up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you over there now.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, thanks.
Justin, thank you so much. Great to speak with you.
Pleasure.